To me, the time skip is definitely one of the biggest moments in One Piece and definitely a monumental moment for the One Piece story as a whole. I've talked about this idea before where the Straw Hats are faced with an enemy that we as the readers don't believe they can defeat, so it follows this pattern. And this pattern is a reality check showcasing how strong the enemy is, which causes a shift in tone, and that gets followed up with some sort of resolution. And the resolution can be a variety of things, either that's like power-ups like we saw in Eni's lobby, or some kind of storytelling element that kind of just saves their ass. The build up to the time skip was a complete reality check for the Straw Hats and also the readers. Like the moment in Sabaody will be one of the most shocking moments in all of One Piece. Not a lot of people expected that. I definitely did not. And Sabaody was even kind of foreshadowed in the previous arc where you have Moria facing off against the Straw Hats, warning them about the terrors of the new world and how he lost all his crew members, and that is the reason why he only has zombie crew members now. And essentially Sabaody was confirming that fear. Before the Straw Hats are even able to make it into the new world, they're faced with enemies way out of their league and they get absolutely decimated. But it doesn't even stop there, because then Luffy is tossed into this chase and mission to try to rescue his brother, now trying to save his family. And he gets tossed into this chaotic Marineford war, which honestly he had no place to be in. And the only reason he didn't completely break down and his ambition didn't just completely die was because of his moment with Jinbei, where Jinbei kind of knocks some sense into him, like, hey, don't dwell on the past, Ace is dead, but you still have your Nakama. And that kind of becomes Luffy's new motivation, the fact that he has a crew to live for, and that really motivates him into the time skip of trying to become stronger, not to just become the Pirate King, but strong enough to protect all his friends. And we see that theme across all of the Straw Hats. They all see Luffy suffering without them not being there able to help him at his lowest. So when the plan of the time skip was finally revealed, they all had some motivation to get stronger, to help Luffy become the Pirate King, and also to help their own ambition and dreams. And to me, when the Straw Hats came out of that time skip, they needed to be strong enough as a whole and individually to be able to handle anything they came across in the new world. Now, I'm not saying they needed to be strong enough to just handle everything right off the bat. Like, if Kaido showed up to Sabaody when Luffy and his gang showed up, game over. That's the end of One Piece. The Straw Hats are decimated again. But the main point is they needed to come out of that time skip strong enough to protect themselves and also have enough knowledge and potential to continue to grow through tough battles and to eventually defeat all the strong enemies that they were going to face. Like pretty much what they did pre-Sabaody. Like, it wasn't like they were strong enough to take on all these Shichibukai and all these tough enemies, but they were strong enough to save themselves and protect each other, and also had enough power and knowledge to grow through these battles to come out on top. So post time skip, I was really excited to see that from the Straw Hats, and we got a glimpses of that in Fishman Island, which was pretty much just showcasing all their new abilities and skills. But since then, we haven't really seen much of that besides from Luffy. And that's because the time skip was also a shift in the story, where now we are expanding out into the full vision of the entire One Piece world, and we're finding out more important things like the Reverie, and also focusing on other characters like the Supernovas. So besides Luffy, the other Straw Hats haven't really had their time to showcase what they've learned during the time skip. But as this story comes to a close, which has been hinted on by like his editors and Oda himself, and especially in the most recent One Piece magazine, where they said, hey, it's a good time to reread because the story is really starting to wrap up. So if you think about it, we probably have only one saga, one big saga, or maybe at most two sagas left before the story of One Piece ends. And because of that, I think the story will slowly start to focus back in on the Straw Hat main crew, because the number of enemies that they have to face will start to dwindle down. And also, we really have to focus on their storylines wrapping up and them like accomplishing their dreams, because at the end of the day, they are the main cast, and like their storylines and progression now has to be wrapped up and resolved in good detail. But back to the topic of strength, I think Wano is going to be the first moment post time skip where we're getting every single Straw Hat in a battle where they are really tested, so we could get more of what they learned and how they grew during the time skip. So for this video, we're gonna go through and analyze each and every Straw Straw Hat and what they learned during the time skip, what they've already showcased, and what they could potentially know, and how they could potentially grow from the things they learn. And remember, if you like videos like this, be sure to hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. But let's start with Luffy because he showcased the most from what he's learned in the time skip and also his growth as a whole. So during the time skip, Luffy got a great mentor. He had Rayleigh, the Dark King, the right-hand man of the Pirate King himself. That was his teacher, and they trained on the island of Rusukena, an island within the Calm Belt, which has 48 seasons that changes weekly. On top of that, there was some crazy gigantic beasts on that island, and one of the things that Rayleigh noted off the bat is that on that island, there were over 500 animals that were just straight up stronger than Luffy. And to showcase Luffy's growth after the 2-year time skip, he leaves that island with all those animals, as he calls them his friends, right? So he kind of dominated that island, really became stronger than all those animals that were stronger than him. So that was really the first glimpse that we got of Luffy's strength and what he learned with Rayleigh. Now, his training with Rayleigh consisted of a few things. First of all, he just got stronger overall, and one of those things is his mastery of Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd. Like post time skip, he's able to go into those forms very easily, and to the point now in Wano, he doesn't really even need to announce it anymore. It's kind of considered part of his base form because he could jump in and out and combine those forms so easily and so seamlessly, like how he attacked Ulti in page 1 by jetting to Ulti in Gear 2nd, slamming her down, and then Gear 3rd Elephant Gun right into the chin of page 1. He mastered those forms during the time skip and has grown with them even more post time skip with his fights. But with Rayleigh, Luffy's main training was Haki, and Rayleigh gets right into that. He wastes no time. Like as soon as they start training, Rayleigh is like, okay, here we go. There's a thing called Haki. There's 3 versions of it. You have all 3 of them, and like you should train all 3 of them. So in terms of knowledge, that was definitely the information dump that Rayleigh gave to Luffy, and Rayleigh actually ended up leaving 6 months earlier than the time skip, because at that point he had said that he had taught Luffy everything he could. Now obviously Rayleigh did not teach Luffy everything there is to know about Haki, but here's where it really ties into what I talked about with having knowledge and the potential to grow through the fights in the future. Because although Rayleigh didn't teach Luffy advanced armament Haki and advanced observation Haki, when Luffy began to learn those things through Haki blooming through intense fights, he flashed back to moments with Rayleigh. So although Rayleigh did not teach Luffy all those techniques, or at least he really couldn't, because for Haki to reach that level, you need to be in an intense fight for it to bloom. So he was prepared to grow when he needed to in intense fights in the future. And with all the Haki information Rayleigh gave to Luffy, Luffy was able to take that, incorporate it with his Devil Fruit, and create Gear 4th. And Gear 4th is nowhere near perfect. We still don't really know if Luffy has a complete control and handle on the whole stamina issue, which was another thing Rayleigh warned him about, but I definitely don't think we've seen the best of Gear 4th yet. Because Rayleigh warning Luffy about that means Luffy knowing that was an issue, and he definitely started to develop different ways to counteract that issue. Now personally, I'm not of the belief that there is another form to Gear 4th. I think it makes a lot of sense for Gear 4th to have these 3 base forms: the ultimate attack form with Bound Man, the speed and agility form with Snake Man, and the defensive form with Tank Man. Now Tank Man is the most interesting one because I don't think we've seen it in its base form yet, because the version we saw was him after eating a bunch of biscuits and crackers, and he was like 500 pounds, and he became like Tank Man, like super bloated version. I think there is a base version of Tank Man where he's focusing on using armament as more of a defense than attack. And I think ultimately the best way to use Gear 4th is Luffy advancing his armament Haki to the next level, kind of negating the stamina issue a little bit, but also allowing him to incorporate that into 3 different forms where he's able to switch into interchangeably, so then he could be really strategic with it and decide when to change into each of those forms to get the best results. Now when it comes to Luffy and where he could potentially grow, I think there are 2 very obvious answers. One is Conqueror's Haki, which I'm sure Rayleigh gave him a bunch of information on, and following the story pattern we are right now of Luffy learning Future Vision and Whole Cake Island, advanced armament with Ryo and Wano, I'm guessing Conqueror's is next. And that's when we'll really find out what Rayleigh taught Luffy about Conqueror's Haki and how he could possibly use it more effectively. Now the other area where he can obviously improve upon is his Devil Fruit, and specifically Awakening. And honestly, I actually don't think Rayleigh could provide that much information about this because he wasn't a Devil fruit user, and devil fruits are very like specific to the user. Only whoever has that devil fruit could really know its full powers and what it feels like. And like when Doflamingo mentioned Devil Fruit Awakening, Luffy really had no idea what it was, so I really think Devil Fruit Awakening, Rayleigh just didn't know anything about it, and it's an area where Luffy has to grow from his own. But next up, let's talk about Zoro, who trained on Kurogane Island and threw away his pride and bowed down to Mihawk to ask him to train him. So Zoro, another person who got a great teacher in Mihawk, and because of that, during the time skip, he learned both Hakis, observation and armament. But so far, it's very clear that his specialty is armament Haki. In fact, the only time we got a glimpse of Zoro's training was after his battle with Pika, where he sliced down Pika and then had a flashback with Mihawk teaching him armament, about how he needed to learn armament and turn his blades black, and if he couldn't do that, he wasn't allowed to drink. And I talked a little bit about this in my most recent Zoro video, but Zoro having armament as his specialty makes the absolutely makes sense, because as a swordsman, you have to be able to cut down your opponent. If you don't have better armament than your opponent, you pretty much just lost. So I think with armament being the focus of Zoro's training, there's no way Mihawk did not teach Zoro about advanced armament Haki. And again, it's not like Zoro needs to have learned it during the time skip. Like Luffy wasn't able to. It's a very difficult thing to learn. I don't think Zoro could have learned it in such a short time either. But just him having that information, and now with him most recently getting Emma, a sword that literally controls your Haki, and you have to be in full control of your Haki to be able to use that sword. And we're up against an uncuttable enemy in Kaido, who seems like if you want to damage him at all, you have to know advanced armament Haki. I think we could be seeing Zoro bloom his Haki in an intense battle, hopefully King. Because listen, even if you don't think Zoro's gonna kill Kaido, they're gonna need a lot of help to kill Kaido. Why not have another person be able to help them fight Kaido? But anyways, back to Zoro's training. Although his focus is definitely armament, he also learned observation Haki. And one theory with this is tying back to Zoro's eye, of him like cutting that eye so he could learn better observation Haki. And like honestly, I don't think he's gonna do anything crazy like open that eye. I do kind of like the idea of him cutting that eye so he could learn better observation Haki. Like I feel like that's very Zoro logic. Or even like Mihawk wounding that eye so he could focus better or something like that. I could see that being an explanation as well. But I don't think he's gonna open his eye and have better observation all of a sudden. That really doesn't make any sense. But for Zoro during the time skip, I don't think he only learned about observation and armament. I think Conqueror's Haki he also found out about, and it's possible that he might awaken it during Wano. And again, I talked about this in another video talking about Conqueror's Haki, but I fully believe it makes sense that Zoro could have Conqueror's Haki. With his ambition of becoming the world's greatest swordsman, I just think it makes perfect sense. And we did have that moment back in Fishman Island where Luffy unleashed it in full control, and Zoro had a line of like, if he didn't have that, I would have to become the captain. So Mihawk definitely talked to him about it and gave him some information about it, and that gives him some information and knowledge for the potential of unlocking it in a future fight. But yeah, that's everything in regards to Haki with Zoro, but I'm hoping that's not the only thing he learned in his training with Mihawk. I'm hoping they also focused on sword techniques, and specifically Ashura, Kyotoryu Ashura, like what is that? Give us an explanation of that, please. And like in Wano right now, we are slowly starting to delve into more sword techniques and styles, like Hiku explaining her blade is able to wound the opponent into their afterlife. Of course, like Hidemon is able to light his sword on fire. So Zoro's style of Ashura, I feel like definitely has some more depth to it that Mihawk could have provided some information on. And we haven't seen it used yet post time skip, and like Ashura was arguably his strongest attack. It wouldn't make sense for him to just completely abandon it. So yeah, in terms of future potential growth for Zoro, I think Ashura is definitely something he's saving up his sleeve. But next, let's talk about our boy Sanji. And Sanji, just like Zoro, learned both Hakis. But Sanji, unlike Zoro and Luffy, didn't really have that good of a teacher. Now, like, I'm not like bashing Ivankov. Ivankov is a very knowledgeable person and is decently strong, but it wasn't really like a teacher to student relationship that they had there. In fact, Sanji's main goal on that island was to really just get those attack recipes while trying to run away from the other Okama Kenpo masters. And a lot of his growth that we found out post time skip was really just escaping from Okama. Like Skywalk and Blue Walk, he kind of developed from just running away so much. He's able to use fire more effectively because of what he calls Hell's memories of him thinking back to the days where he's running away from the Okama. And like low-key, him having to sneak around, because one of the things that was mentioned like was he had to sneak and steal those recipes from the Okama Kenpo masters. So him having to do that all the time probably was the reason he got so much better at observation haki, which we've seen is definitely his specialty. Now I do think Ivankov gave him some information maybe in the midst of like him escaping or him starting to develop haki and seeing that like starting to bloom. Ivankov definitely provided him with some guidance, but it's definitely not at the same level with Luffy and Rayleigh and Zoro and Mihawk. Now what's kind of interesting is Sanji's armament haki, because he's been confirmed to be a user of it when like Luffy mentioned him as an armament user when Law asked him about it back in Punk Hazard. And I haven't fact checked this myself because I haven't read post time skip over again, but in a recent Morge video he mentioned that Sanji has not been showcased with the colored in armament haki. And that's very interesting because Sanji's armament has been showcased to be a little weaker because of one, his struggle against Virgo, but it also kind of makes sense because he really didn't have like a sensei to properly teach him armament haki, and honestly he probably wasn't doing that like much heavy fighting during post time skip. He was mostly just sneaking around, so he probably really didn't have the opportunity to like duke it out and like bloom his armament haki. But I do think there is a lot of potential growth with Sanji and all elements of haki, but I'm actually gonna save that for another video for my Straw Hat Power series, which I started with my most recent Zoro video. But yeah, in terms of Sanji's training during the time skip, he kind of grew mostly through his own struggles of running away from the Okama, and the main thing that he really learned was the attack recipes, which honestly I feel like should be showcased a little more because it was like the main thing that he focused on during his training. One interesting way we could go about it is like Sanji's body becoming stronger, of him like cooking that kind of meal for himself every day during the time skip, but that really hasn't been hinted at like at all in the story, so that's probably not happening. But next I want to touch on Jinbei, who is officially now a Straw Hat, even got an appearance in the most recent color spread. But Jinbei obviously wasn't a Straw Hat before the time skip and didn't go into the time skip as motivated as the other Straw Hats. But there is a moment between Luffy and Jinbei before they separate where Jinbei tells Luffy he's looking forward to meeting him again and his crew. I think during the time skip, Jinbei definitely like, you know, probably reflected a little bit, thought back to how he almost died in the Marineford War where he was pretty much ready to die, honestly. So him still being alive and being motivated by Luffy, he might have had a little extra push to get a little stronger. And Wano is definitely the arc where we're gonna see some serious Jinbei action and what he's really capable of. And maybe we'll get some quick flashback panels of Jinbei's thought process during the time skip where if he definitely like trained a little bit, hopefully we'll get to see that. But either way, I'm just really excited to see Jinbei in some action as an official Straw Hat. But next, let's talk about Robin, the absolute mystery girl. She knows pretty much everything there is to know but never reveals a single thing to us. And Robin is interesting because she got her time skip training with perhaps possibly the strongest person out of anybody. I'm not saying definitively that Dragon is the strongest, but we don't know anything about him, so it's definitely still possible. At the very least, she was surrounded by a lot of strong people with a lot of knowledge, and she absolutely was asking all the right questions. I really don't think there's any way that Robin did not learn about Haki and everything there is to know about it, because she's an archaeologist, she studies history, and she went into the time skip with the motivation of becoming stronger. Like, I have a lot of high hopes for Robin's growth potential that she gained during her time skip training, because I have high expectations of her of like asking the right questions, getting like all the best information. The problem is she just never reveals any information to us readers, and she also hasn't been able to use Haki so far. I still do think the potential of Robin learning Haki is there. there. And going back to the Straw Hat Power series that I want to continue with Robin's video, I definitely want to focus on her massive potential with her Devil Fruit power and also Haki. But yeah, Robin's potential is endless, but in terms of what she actually learned, it's mostly been Devil Fruit powers. Post time skip, she's able to sprout way more limbs and is able to get very creative with her attacks, making clones and creating like gigantic versions of like hands and legs. I think she definitely has more tricks up her sleeve, and it's possible she also got some information on Devil Fruit Awakening as well. Because once again, I really have high expectations for Robin asking the right questions, especially when she's in the presence of somebody like Dragon. But yeah, if you can't tell already, I'm very excited to see Robin in action, because honestly, her time skip situation was probably one of the best ones out of all of the Straw Hats. Next, let's jump to Nami, and Nami's training is actually pretty straightforward. On Weather Rhea, she pretty much just learned everything there is to know about weather. She upgraded her Clean Attack and incorporated the weather balls to her arsenal. Like I just mentioned about Robin, and I'm gonna say this about more Straw Hats, I think Nami definitely has more tricks up her sleeve. Like there was a snow-based attack called Yuki Gumo that she almost used in Whole Cake Island, but it was interrupted. Cyclone Tempo we haven't seen upgraded as well, and that was like one of her most significant attacks in the pre-time skip. So that attack could definitely be a crazy powerful attack, and I definitely think there's some more other crazy weather-like attacks that she's come up with. But once again, I'm really just excited to see Nami in action, her using her battle IQ to really combine her different attacks and get really creative with it. Also with Nami, of course, her learning a lot about navigation is going to contribute a lot to her dream, and she's definitely going to get a lot more shine in regards to that as we get closer to Laugh Tale and even possibly Lodestar. But next, let's talk about our boy Usopp. And Usopp, it's even more straightforward. Man just got dumb buff. He just trained with his master Heracles, who was pretty much just a botanist that got really strong because of his situation. So of course Usopp got help there, incorporating the pop greens into his arsenal. The main thing with Usopp is him actually becoming stronger, where he's like actually buff. And I'm gonna say this right now, Usopp's post-time skip design was definitely the hypest out of all of the Straw Hats. Because now he's like a jack dude where like before, if he was fighting somebody else, you were genuinely worried for him. And this one is really tying to the idea of him being strong enough to protect himself. And with Usopp getting stronger, not only physically, but also with his new attacks, I feel confident in him as a member of the crew. His future potential growth is more so of him just continuing to grow by himself. It's nothing really tied to him during the time skip. Like him learning observation Haki, I'm sure had some of it to do with like his intense training during the time skip, but it was also just him continuing to get stronger post time skip. Next up, let's talk about Frankie, who also was in a pretty like fortunate situation of ending up in the lab of Vegapunk. So basically he got trained by young Dr. Vegapunk, and Frankie of course went and decked himself out in a bunch of new weapons, and also built the Frankie General and a bunch of other things for the Sunny, and these things are very durable, so big props to Frankie there. Like we recently saw one of them tank the hit from Big Mom. And with Frankie's power, I think it's really straightforward. He could have some other weapons that he hasn't revealed yet, but it's all gonna be tied to like his theme of like big gigantic weapons and lasers and cannons and shotguns and stuff like that. But if Oda really wanted to get creative with Frankie's growth, he could delve into Frankie like actually incorporating some of Vegapunk's like human cell studies, because that was one of the things that was mentioned in the lab that Frankie discovered. So maybe Frankie could have like delved into some sort of like Germa-esque tech territory, but at the same time Frankie's character is just so tied together to this like mecha like weapons and explosions and lasers kind of thing. I honestly don't see Oda just going outside the box for Frankie's character, but I hope I'm proven wrong. Next, let's talk about Chopper, who ended up in a pretty good situation as well. He ended up in the advanced civilization of the Torino Kingdom, and this island had all sorts of different medicinal herbs and a bunch of different books that he could study from, and obviously this contributes greatly to his big dream of becoming the greatest doctor and being able to like cure anything, but he also focused on getting stronger as well. First off, he just got stronger overall of being able to change into different forms without using a Rumple Ball, and also creating 2 new forms. And then he messed around with the Rumple Ball recipe of now being able to change into Monster Point for 5 minutes straight without any side effects. Now there is one thing that is very interesting to me about Chopper's growth during the time skip, because he had this line where he said, "For you Luffy, I'm willing to become a real monster." Now it could be just like a sappy touching line of Chopper like wanting to grow for Luffy, but like if you think about it, Chopper pre-time skip, when like on Sabaody, he wasn't able to do anything with Monster Point. So if you want to get deep here, maybe he thought of that and was like, okay, Monster Point isn't going to cut it. I need to like figure something out that goes even beyond that. And like honestly, I'm really hoping like he develops something else beyond that, because I'm gonna be honest here, Chopper's post time skip design with his new like points and stuff, Kung Fu point, the other one's like Horn point, they look pretty goofy. And Monster Point without him enraged and out of control is just not as cool. I still think Chopper's Devil Fruit has some great potential, and this would probably be my video for Chopper in the Straw Hat Power series about his Devil Fruit awakening. But yeah, for Chopper, I really hope he has more up his sleeve, and it's not just him being able to change into these 2 new forms and also control Monster Points. I know his whole focus is becoming a better doctor, but he needs to be stronger too. And finally, let's get to Brooke, who I think ended up in the worst possible situation, at least for training. I mean, he made the best out of it. He still got stronger over the time skip and ended up as a rock star, but he didn't get like a teacher or anything, and really the people he were with, I would argue, were weaker than him. And his time skip training is kind of weird because everybody else was like getting stronger and this man went on tour. Don't get me wrong, he did get stronger, learn more about his Devil Fruit, of being able to like incorporate more musical attacks, being able to like project his like spirit or soul out of his body, bringing a little bit of that underworld and freezing his sword as well, and also getting that sword sharpened. And I do think Brooke has had some of the best moments out of any Straw Hat post time skip. I am still hoping for a lot more, and there's different directions this could go, one of which is like him using more musical powers, which is why Brooke versus Apu I still really want to see. Another direction is him just really going and figuring out his Devil Fruit during the time skip and maybe leading to his Devil Fruit awakening. And in terms of his sword, I really think he should get an upgrade. I've talked about him potentially getting the Nidai Katetsu. I think that would be a cool idea. Or we're in Wano now, and Brooke is also a swordsman. Why can't he get an upgrade as well? But yeah, in terms of Brooke's time skip training, is kind of lackluster because it's not his fault either. He was just bopped into a pretty bad situation. I wonder as well, like, why did Kuma send Brooke over there? Maybe because he was just too new to the crew and Kuma's like, I don't know, let's just send him this way, I guess. But hopefully he has more in store for us in the future. But that is all. That's all the Straw Hats there, and those are my thoughts on what the Straw Hats learned during the time skip and how they could potentially grow in the future because of it. But what did you guys think? What do you think the Straw Hats really learned during the time skip, and what do you think they could possibly showcase in the future? Let me know in the comments below. But as always, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please hit that like button. Helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to keep up to date with when I'm posting new videos or doing live streams, you gotta hit that subscribe button. By the time this video goes up, the King's Pirate Crew should be well over 3,060 members. But let's keep it going. Next big goal at 5K, Discord at 5K. Help us get there. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to join the crew as well. Follow me on Twitter. I'm DKing4. Got a video for you right there, playlist for you right there. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.